Hey everyone, it's Tony here. If you've been waiting on news about that $2,000 stimulus check or dividend payment, as the president has been calling it, I've got a brand new update from the White House that just came out yesterday. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett gave an interview revealing exactly when we're likely to see the official proposal, who qualifies, and whether this is actually going to happen. Some of this is really encouraging news, and honestly, some of it might surprise you because the details are more specific than anything we've seen before. Before we dive in, if you're new here, welcome to Benefits. I've been covering financial relief programs for families like ours for over 6 years now. I've helped millions of people navigate benefits, stimulus payments, and emergency assistance because I've been there myself, struggling to make ends meet and needing clear, honest information without the runaround. I know what it's like to refresh your bank account, hoping to see something there that wasn't there the day before. I know what it's like to wonder if you're going to qualify for help or if somehow you're going to fall through the cracks again. That's exactly why I started this channel, to cut through the confusion and give you the straight facts you can actually use. So, let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually happening with these $2,000 payments. The president has been talking about this since last July, calling them dividend payments rather than stimulus checks. And there's an important reason for that distinction, which I'll explain in just a minute. The idea is that with tariff revenue coming in from trade deals, that money could be distributed directly to American households. Think of it like this. When companies pay tariffs to import goods into the United States, that money goes into the Treasury. Instead of that money just disappearing into the general budget, the proposal is to send a portion of it directly back to you, the American taxpayer. That's why they're calling it a dividend payment. It's not technically a stimulus to boost the economy, though it would certainly help with that. It's being framed as giving Americans their share of the revenue that's being generated. Now, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent already indicated back in early November, and I actually have a video about this on my channel if you want to go back and watch it, that these payments would go to households making under $100,000 per year. That's the income threshold we're working with. This number has been repeated multiple times by different officials, so it seems pretty solid at this point. And here's something really important I want to clear up, because I get this question constantly, and I mean every single day in the comments. If you're on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or you're a senior who doesn't file a tax return, you're not automatically excluded. This has nothing to do with whether you work or file taxes. It's all about your income. If your income is under $100,000, you could qualify, period. I don't care if you're 85 years old and haven't worked in 20 years. I don't care if you're on disability and haven't filed a tax return since 2015. None of that matters for this payment. What matters is your income level. So yesterday, White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett, who's actually on the short list to potentially become the next Federal Reserve chairman, gave an interview where he provided some really specific details about this $2,000 payment. And let me tell you, Kevin Hassett doesn't just throw information out there casually. This is a guy who's been in economic policy for decades. He was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors during the previous administration. He understands how these things work from the inside. So when he speaks, people in Washington listen. Here's what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but these are his words. Back in the summer, he wasn't sure there would be room in the budget to send these payments. The numbers weren't looking great. The deficit was concerning. There were questions about whether this was even feasible from a fiscal responsibility standpoint. But now, he says, with a couple quarters of almost 4% economic growth, a government surplus running for a few months in a row, and the deficit down by $600 billion compared to last year, he's pretty confident there actually is space for it. That's a massive shift. We're talking about going from, I don't think we can afford this, to actually, the numbers are supporting this now. And that change didn't happen because of wishful thinking. It happened because the economic data improved significantly. Then he said something really important. He expects that in the new year, the president will bring forth an official proposal to Congress to make this happen. Not maybe, not possibly. He expects it. That's the kind of language that tells me this is being actively worked on right now behind the scenes. They're doing the math, they're drafting the legislation, they're figuring out the logistics of how to actually make this work. So let me break down what this means in practical terms. We're not talking about maybe or we'll see anymore. The White House economic advisor is saying he expects an official proposal in early 2026. That's huge. That means we're moving from the speculation phase into the actual legislative phase. He also clarified that this money could come from tariff revenue, but ultimately Congress would need to appropriate the funds. That's not surprising. Any government spending has to be approved by Congress. That's just how our system works. But the fact that he's talking about it in these concrete terms, mentioning specific revenue sources and congressional processes, is very encouraging. This isn't vague political talk anymore. This is an economist laying out the roadmap. Now let's talk about how this would actually get passed, because this is where it gets interesting and honestly pretty hopeful for those of you waiting on this money. Congress has already indicated they're planning to do at least 2 more reconciliation bills between now and early 2027. What's a reconciliation bill? It's basically a special type of legislation that allows one party to pass major bills with just a simple majority in the Senate, 51 votes instead of the usual 60 votes required for most legislation. They just used this process over the summer to pass a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut bill. It's a powerful tool when one party controls both chambers of Congress. And here's why this matters for the $2,000 payments. If they include this in a reconciliation bill, they can get it passed much more easily without needing bipartisan support. They don't have to negotiate with the opposing party. They don't have to water down the proposal to get votes from the other side. They can craft exactly what they want and pass it with their own votes. From a political standpoint, and I'm not making this political, just stating facts, the party in power would get full credit for these payments. And with midterm elections coming up in November 2026, that's a pretty strong incentive to make this happen sooner rather than later. Politicians want to be able to go back to their districts and say, I helped put $2,000 in your pocket. That's a powerful campaign message. So when could we actually see this official proposal? Kevin Hassett said early 2026. But what does that mean exactly? Here's my realistic assessment based on 6 years of watching how these things work in Washington. If they're serious about this, I think we'll see the official proposal by mid to late February at the latest. Here's why. Once we get into March, we're in full campaign mode for the midterm elections. If they want to use this as a major talking point for those elections, which the president has already indicated they will, they need to get the proposal out and start messaging it by early to mid-February. So I'm talking first 6 weeks of the new year, January through mid-February. That's the window where I'd expect to see the official proposal if it's going to happen. And there's another reason for that timeline. Tax season starts in late January. If they're going to use tax return data to determine eligibility, which they almost certainly will, they need to announce this before people start filing so the IRS can prepare their systems. Remember what happened with the previous stimulus checks? The IRS had to scramble to set up portals and payment systems, and it caused delays. They don't want that to happen again. Now, that doesn't mean payments would go out immediately. There would still need to be congressional votes. The bill would need to pass both the House and Senate. Then it goes to the president for signature. After that, the IRS would need to process payments. They'd need to determine who qualifies based on tax return information. They'd need to set up direct deposit payments and mail out checks to people who don't have direct deposit on file. Realistically, we're probably looking at spring or early summer 2026 for actual payments if everything moves forward smoothly. I'm talking May, June, possibly July for most people to see this money hit their accounts. But here's something important to understand. The process could move faster than that if they really prioritize it. When COVID hit and they passed those first stimulus checks in March 2020, some people had money in their accounts within 2 weeks. The IRS can move quickly when there's political pressure to do so. So while I'm giving you a realistic timeline of spring to early summer, don't be shocked if it happens faster than that. Let's be crystal clear about who would get this money based on what we know so far. Income requirement, households making under $100,000 per year. Now, we don't know yet if that's individual income or household income, or if there will be phase outs like previous stimulus checks. But that $100,000 threshold has been consistently mentioned by multiple officials. My guess, and this is just based on how previous payments worked, is that it'll be adjusted gross income from your most recent tax return. If you're single and your AGI is under $100,000, you qualify. If you're married filing jointly, it might be $200,000 combined, but we don't know that for certain yet. Social Security recipients, yes, you would likely qualify if your income is under that threshold. This includes regular Social Security retirement, SSI, SSDI, all of it. You do not need to file a tax return to get this. This is critical to understand. During the previous stimulus rounds, the IRS automatically sent payments to Social Security recipients using their Social Security Administration records. They didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to file a tax return. The money just showed up. I expect it would work the same way this time. Seniors, same deal. If you're 65, 75, 85 years old and your income is under $100,000, you'd likely qualify. It doesn't matter that you're retired. It doesn't matter that you're not in the workforce anymore. Your Social Security income, your pension income, your retirement account distributions, all of that counts toward that $100,000 threshold. But most seniors are well under that amount. The average Social Security check right now is around $1,100 a month. That's less than $23,000 a year. You're nowhere near that $100,000 threshold. Veterans, if you're receiving VA benefits and your total income is under the threshold, you'd qualify. This includes VA disability compensation, VA pension, everything. And let me be really clear about this because I get questions about it all the time. VA disability compensation is tax-free income, but it still counts as income for purposes of these payments. So if you're getting $3,000 a month in VA disability, that's $36,000 a year of income, and you'd be well under the threshold. Parents with kids, based on previous payment structures, there might be additional amounts per child, though that hasn't been confirmed yet. In the previous stimulus rounds, families got an extra $500 or $600 per dependent child. If they follow that same structure, you might get $2,000 plus additional money for each kid you're claiming on your taxes. But again, we don't have confirmation on that yet. It's just a reasonable assumption based on how they've done it before. Unemployed workers, if you're currently unemployed or your income dropped and you're now under $100,000, you'd likely qualify. And here's something important. They're going to look at your 2024 tax return to determine your income. So if you made $120,000 in 2023, but you lost your job in 2024 and only made $40,000, you'd qualify based on your 2024 income. That's why it's so important to file your 2024 taxes as soon as possible. People on disability, whether you're on SSDI, Veterans Disability, or other disability benefits, if your income qualifies, you should get the payment. And let me address another common question I get. If you're on disability and you also work part-time, your total income is what matters. So if you get $1,500 a month in SSDI and you also earn $1,000 a month from a part-time job, your total annual income is about $30,000 and you'd still be well under the threshold. The key thing to understand is this is about income level, not about your work status or what kind of benefits you receive. This isn't like some programs where there are all these complicated rules about what counts and what doesn't. It's simple. What's your income? Is it under $100,000? Yes, you qualify. That's it. Here's what's really encouraging about this latest update. First, the White House economic advisor went from, I'm not sure if there's room for this in the summer, to, I'm pretty sure there is room for it now. That's a significant shift in confidence, and it's not based on wishful thinking or political promises. It's based on actual economic data. The deficit is down. The government is running a surplus. Economic growth is strong. These are measurable facts, not opinions. Second, the economic data is supporting this. Government surplus for multiple months, deficit down substantially, economic growth strong. These are the conditions that make a payment like this politically and economically feasible. When the government is running a deficit and the economy is struggling, it's really hard to justify sending out billions of dollars in direct payments. But when you've got a surplus and strong growth, suddenly it becomes much more politically palatable. Even fiscal conservatives have a harder time arguing against it when the money is actually there. Third, we have a specific timeline now. Early 2026 for an official proposal is the most concrete information we've gotten on this. We're not talking about someday or eventually anymore. We're talking about the next 6 to 8 weeks. That's a massive difference. Fourth, the reconciliation bill pathway exists. They don't need to negotiate with the opposing party or get 60 votes. They can do this with a simple majority, which makes it much more likely to actually happen. This is probably the most important factor. Without the reconciliation process, I'd be a lot more skeptical about whether this could pass. But with it, the path is clear. And fifth, there's strong political motivation to make this happen. With midterm elections coming up, being able to say, we put $2,000 in your pocket is incredibly valuable politically. That kind of direct, tangible benefit is what voters remember when they go to the polls. Don't just wait around hoping this happens. Here's what you need to do to make sure you're ready when and if these payments get approved. File your 2024 taxes as soon as possible. I cannot stress this enough. If this payment goes through, they'll use your most recent tax return to determine eligibility and income level. Get that filed early. The IRS starts accepting returns in late January. Get your documents together now. Get your W-2s, your 1099s, everything you need. And as soon as the IRS opens for filing, get that return submitted. Don't wait until April 15th. File in January or February. Update your information with the IRS. Make sure they have your current mailing address and direct deposit information. You can do this at irs.gov. If they're going to send money, you want to make sure it gets to you without delays. I've seen so many people miss out on previous payments or have them delayed by months because the IRS had an old address on file. Don't let that be you. Log into your IRS account, verify your information, update anything that's changed. It takes 10 minutes and it could save you months of headaches. If you don't normally file taxes, you still might need to file to get this payment. That's what happened with previous stimulus checks for people on Social Security and SSI. Even though most people got their payments automatically, there were some situations where people had to file a simple return to claim the payment. So even if you're not required to file, keep an eye out for information about filing to claim the payment. The IRS will publish information about this if it becomes necessary. Don't fall for scams. Once this gets closer, scammers will be out in full force. They always are. The IRS will never call you, text you, or email you asking for personal information to get a stimulus payment. Anyone who does that is a scammer, period. No exceptions. The IRS doesn't operate that way. If someone contacts you claiming to be from the IRS and asking for your Social Security number, your bank account information, or any kind of payment or fee to release your stimulus check, hang up immediately. It's a scam. Report it to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov. And let me tell you about some of the specific scams I've already seen circulating. There are websites popping up claiming you can register for the stimulus payment or apply for it. These are fake. You don't register. You don't apply. If you qualify, you'll get it automatically based on your tax return. Don't give your information to any of these websites. There are also people sending text messages saying, click here to claim your stimulus payment. Don't click those links. They're phishing attempts designed to steal your information. Check for other benefits you might qualify for right now. Go to benefits.gov and use their screening tool. While you're waiting for this potential payment, there might be other programs, SNAP, LIHEAP, Medicaid, that could help you. A lot of people don't realize they qualify for benefits that are available right now. The screening tool on benefits.gov asks you a series of questions about your situation, your income, your household, and then it tells you what programs you might be eligible for. It's free, it's official, and it might connect you with help you need today, not 6 months from now. Today, let me speak directly to some specific groups who've been asking me about this. Moms and dads, I know you're struggling with childcare costs, groceries, school expenses. The price of everything has gone up. Your kids need new shoes and clothes every few months because they won't stop growing. The school keeps sending home permission slips for field trips that cost $20 or $30, $40 each. It adds up fast. If this comes through, it could be a huge help. Make sure your tax return includes all your dependents and that your income information is accurate. Don't forget to claim any kids who are living with you, even if they're older teenagers. If they're under 17, they might qualify you for extra money. Seniors on fixed income, you've been hit hard by inflation while your Social Security checks haven't kept up. You got a cost of living adjustment, sure, but it wasn't enough to cover the real increase in prices you're seeing at the grocery store, at the pharmacy, on your utility bills. This payment has nothing to do with your work history or whether you file taxes. Focus on making sure the IRS has your current information. If you move to a cheaper apartment or you're living with family now because you couldn't afford to stay where you were, make sure that new address is on file. The Social Security Administration will share your information with the IRS, but double check to be safe. Veterans, you've served this country and you deserve this support. Whether you're working, retired, or on disability, if your income qualifies, you should get this payment. I know a lot of you are hesitant to claim benefits or accept help because you're independent people who don't like asking for anything. This isn't charity. This isn't a handout. This is your share of revenue that's being generated from tariffs. You earned this just by being an American taxpayer. There's no shame in accepting it. People with disabilities, this is not about your ability to work. It's about your income. If you're under that $100,000 threshold, you should qualify. And I want to address something I see in the comments sometimes. Some people worry that getting this payment will affect their disability benefits or their SSI. It won't. Stimulus payments and payments like this are not counted as income for purposes of determining your benefits. The Social Security Administration has confirmed this in the past, and I expect it'll be the same for this payment. You can get this money without worrying about losing your benefits. Unemployed workers. If you've lost your job or had your hours cut and your income has dropped, you could definitely qualify. Make sure you file your 2024 taxes to show that reduced income. Even if you didn't earn much money last year, file the return anyway. That's the document the IRS will use to determine if you qualify. And if you're currently receiving unemployment benefits, those count as income, but they're probably not going to push you over the $100,000 threshold unless you had a very high-paying job before you lost it. Okay, I need to be completely honest with you. Is this payment guaranteed? No. There's still a chance that the proposal doesn't get introduced, or it gets introduced and doesn't pass, or it passes but gets modified. Maybe they reduce it from $2,000 to $1,500. Maybe they lower the income threshold to $75,000. Maybe they add additional requirements. Politics is unpredictable. Things can change quickly. But here's what I will say. This is the most concrete information we've had about this since the president first mentioned it back in July. Kevin Hassett is not some random person. He's the White House economic advisor. He's in the room where these decisions are being made. And he's saying he expects this proposal to come forward. That matters. The economic conditions are right. The political incentives are there. The pathway exists through reconciliation bills. All the pieces are lining up in a way that makes this more likely than not to happen. Does that mean you should count on it for your rent payment next month? Absolutely not. But should you be prepared and watching for it? Yes. Should you get your tax return filed early and your IRS information updated? Absolutely. There's no downside to being prepared. Look, I know you're tired of hearing maybe and soon and we'll see. You need help now, not 6 months from now. I get it. I really do. I've been there. I know what it's like to need help today and be told to wait. What I can tell you is that this update from yesterday is the most encouraging news we've had on this payment. We've got a timeline, early 2026 for the proposal. We've got an income threshold, $100,000. We've got a White House advisor saying he's confident there's room for it in the budget. That's more than we've had before, and it's moving in the right direction. In the meantime, please check out those resources in the description. There's help available now while we're waiting. You don't have to struggle alone. Keep your information updated with the IRS. File your taxes early. Stay informed, but don't let this consume you. Check once a week for updates, but don't spend every day refreshing news sites and stressing about it. We'll know more in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'll be here keeping you updated every step of the way. As soon as that official proposal drops, I'll have a video up breaking down every detail. You'll know about it, I promise you that. If you found this helpful, please hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free. Share this video with anyone you know who's been asking about these payments, your mom, your neighbor, your friend from church, who's always asking if you've heard anything. Send them this video. Drop your questions in the comments, and I'll answer as many as I can. I read every single comment, and I try to respond to as many as possible, especially when people have specific situations they're trying to figure out. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, you're not alone in this. There are millions of people in the same situation, waiting for the same information, trying to make the same decisions. I've got your back. I'll see you in the next video.